So we literally have asked around and said, is there a club that is doing what we're doing on the level that we're doing it? And as far as we know, the answer is no. People can be incredibly generous, but without realising that actually, well, no, the club doesn't receive any of that. You give up or you do something about it. We try and make that sort of fan experience as accessible for people. We try and make it as enjoyable for people. But it gave us the basis to do something which we don't think any other club in the country has done before or is doing currently.
At any level?
At any level.
That's a statement.
So, well,
It's a big statement.
It is a big statement.
I've made it several times, Adam, and I am more than happy to receive an
Okay.
email from another club chairman to say, hold on, Andrew, you've got your facts wrong there.
On today's special football episode, we sit down and talk to Andrew Madaras, Chairman and Secretary of Dunstable Town Football Club. We'll be talking about the power of fan ownership when it comes to grassroots football, myths and misconceptions, as well as how fan experience differs at this level compared to higher tiers. Enjoy this Euro 2024 special, and if you do, subscribe to our channel for CXI's best content. This episode is brought to you by ACF Technologies, global leaders in customer experience management solutions. Now let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the CX Insider podcast. My name is Octavian and I'm joined by Adam.
Morning.
And we've got a very special guest. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey?
I will do. Thank you, Octavian. Thank you, Adam, for inviting me on CX Insider podcast. Lovely to be chatting with you both and be able to give your audience a little insight into the life of Dunstable Town Football Club. We're a community-owned football club. We play in the 5th tier of the non-league pyramid. If you think of the English football hierarchy, think of Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea as being in the very top tier, which they of course are, and call that Division 1. We operate at Division 9, so we are several layers down the pyramid. So we're a semi-professional football club, so our players do get sort of expenses. We're playing in the Spartan South Midlands League, we play in the Premier Division, we play in the FA Cup, we play in the FA Vase, and as is common with all teams at our level, the club is run by volunteers. So myself, the club's directors, the coaches for the youth section, the coaches for the ladies section, the people you see on match days, on the turnstiles, stewarding, selling 50-50 tickets are all volunteers.
Okay.
So important to remember that nobody at this level of football sort of takes a salary or sort of takes a wage. People do it in their own time and they do it for the love of the game, for the love of the club. So whether it's a freezing cold night on a Tuesday evening with the elements being as inhospitable as possible, or a lovely sunny August day, the guys and I mean sort of men and women who come and sort of help us out are all doing it unpaid and voluntarily. I mentioned we were a community-owned football club. Club's now been going 140 odd years. We've been at our present ground, Creasy Park in Dunstable, for as long as I've been alive, over 60 years now. But it's a ground that we don't own. It's owned by Central Bedfordshire Council. It's managed on a day-to-day basis by Bedfordshire Football Association, who have just taken over the day-to-day running from Dunstable Town Council. So that the whole centre was redeveloped about 12 years ago, with money from the Football Association, from various other grants, subsidies, and money from the council. The whole complex was redeveloped. So you've now got basically a state-of-the-art complex. You've got 2 all-weather pitches. You've got a really good grass main stadium pitch. You've got a clubhouse. You've got a BMX track. You've got 2 great car parks. It's a great facility.
I was going to ask you more of a kind of a business question.
Yeah.
Because what you've said so far, it sounds like a very challenging business because you don't revenue sources, revenue streams. You've got a lot of volunteers.
Yep.
How do you gain revenue?
It's a very good question because, again, and it's probably worth saying for the audience that at our level of football, most clubs will survive from income greater than their gate receipts on a Saturday. So at this level of football, if you're getting gates of 200 on a match day, which thankfully we just about do, it's very hard to break even.
Okay.
Just because of the expenditure that's needed in terms of pitch hire, training ground hire, match officials, food, etc. So most clubs will survive from one of two methods, and usually it's a combination of both. So there will be one or maybe more individuals at a club who will help the club financially, either through their businesses or through their sort of, generosity as sort of benefactors. And most will have clubhouses which they will open up on match days, and 150 people buying a tea or a coffee and a hot dog
Sure, yeah.
brings in a decent income. If they're lucky to have the full license and availability to hire it out on a Saturday evening or a Friday evening, you can hire it out for weddings,
Just
21st
social
birthdays.
events. 45th,
Absolutely.
Yeah, fine.
And some of the more innovative clubs in and around our area hire them out during the weekdays for nurseries and things like that. Those opportunities for us are not available. We don't own the clubhouse, and we don't have the availability to receive income from the sale of food and drinks on match days. That's
Do you not got like concession stands or anything like that?
so
You have, but you don't get revenue from them.
yeah, that's
Okay.
that's the way it works. So several times a season, I will have people come up to me, quite often ground hoppers or people who have read about what the club's doing, community groups, and they'll sort of just say, you, Andrew, you the chairman. And they think, am I in trouble? No, I'm not in trouble. He's smiling. And I'll say, yes, I am. And they'll just say, I had a great time, really loved it. I put 30 quid behind your bar. Oh, really? Yeah. And they think, it's people can be incredibly generous, but without realising that actually, well, no, the club doesn't receive any of that. So in terms of income, so we rely very heavily on sponsorship. And gents, I have to say thank you to CX Insider Podcast for your very kind sponsorship of the club. It is hugely appreciated. So we have commercial sponsorship. We have, obviously, the ownership scheme brings in a fair amount of income. So things like on match days, like 50-50 tickets, brings in £3,000 a year.
What's a 50-50 ticket?
So
excuse
it's a bit like
our listeners might not know, but yeah, you
Right.
can explain what a 50-50 ticket is.
Yeah, so it's a bit like a raffle ticket. So
Okay.
you buy £5 worth of tickets, and one number is drawn at half time. And if you've got that winning ticket, you get half of the pot, and the club keeps the other half.
Good idea.
It's a very good idea. Yeah.
You don't get them on the pitch and do halfway like crossbar challenges and stuff like that.
No, not quite.
It could be a way to go. It could, could be done.
That brings in roughly £150 a game. If you think 20 games a season, £150, £3,000. That's decent money. We do as what's called a community chest, and again, it's quite similar, but that's two winning numbers. It's not done on match days. That brings in another £3,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get creative.
You have to be creative, yeah. And we're very fortunate that sort of a lot of our volunteers have got business experience, have been accountants, still are accountants, etc. So understand money, understand business, and are able to steer the non-business people like myself into not doing completely daft things. Because if you sort of follow the story, the whole thing about community-owned clubs, when I said that they were the clubs which were formed from the ashes of clubs that had gone out of business, whether it's Hereford, whether it's Darlington, whether it's Scarborough, etc., is that those have been clubs which have ridden the football roller coaster of boom and bust, spent money that perhaps they didn't have, and things haven't worked out. So for us, community ownership was what we decided 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, was what we wanted to do. Our model is all around long-term financial sustainability.
Okay.
So it means that we don't go mad in terms of playing budgets. As tempting as it might be, we don't think, okay, well, let's give the manager X, because if we win the first 2 rounds of the FA Cup and we get a decent bit of prize money, that will pay for that money. Because then what happens when actually you don't win those first 2 rounds in the FA Cup and you don't get the prize money, you're then living off money that really you don't have. And we know that goes on. In our little world of the Spartan League and sort of the leagues next to us, we lost 2 clubs New Salamis and St Panteleimon
And they went out of
in
business.
this season. Yeah, and
Oh, wow.
again, they're clubs in a sense similar to us, don't own their own grounds, not able to draw on those familiar sources of income. And running football clubs at this level it's expensive. And if you don't have either the private backing or the commercial sponsorship, keeping your head above water is difficult. The wealth that is there at the top level and sort of cascades downwards stops roughly when you get to the sixth tier. We've joined up with an organisation called Fair Game. So I mentioned that we belong to the community-owned network of the Football Sports Association, so say our parent body. We've also teamed up with an organisation who are sort of looking at the redistribution of the wealth that's in football. And as I say, it basically stops when you get to the conference south and north. At our level, there's no money
There is no wealth.
that comes down, that trickles down. It comes in the form of maybe some grants or from FA Cup money, FA prize money, but that's still 50% lower than it was pre-COVID. It hasn't returned.
They never put it back up.
Yeah, to the pre-COVID
Wow.
levels. You have the choice. You either complain bitterly and everybody just says, oh, for goodness sake, you've been whinging like this for, X number of years. You give up or you do something about it.
Yeah.
And we as a group of fans back in 2017 decided, when our previous chairman had got to that stage of, I've put enough money into Dunstable Town Football Club, it's not working, it's not sensible, it's not good for my health, whatever. 2017, and this in a sense is the start of our story to where we are now, handed in his resignation. The board of directors that was there at the time all left as well. The management team left, and the players, all but two of them, also left, because that was in a sense where where the money that the club was surviving on was coming from. 30 supporters met 3 potential business investors who said, okay, well, look, we'll save the club, we'll provide some backing, financial backing, but we won't be able to keep you at the level we were at then, which was the Premier Division of the Southern League, so 2 divisions higher than where we are now, but said we will seek voluntary relegation because we cannot sustain football at this level. We don't have the money to do it. And the supporters decided, well, look, if you're going to apply for voluntary relegation, we'll just take the club over ourselves and we'll run it ourselves. And okay, we don't have any money, none of us, but we'll fundraise and we'll try and keep the club going. And we did that season, even though we were playing the likes of Kettering and Hereford and Slough and Hitchin and Gosport, Weymouth, big names in the non-league world. Several of those have gone even higher, Kings Lynn. Yeah, we got relegated on the last day of the season. So without a playing budget, we had some very, very dedicated young footballers. Peter Kiyose was one of them. So Peter's now at Barnsley, but in a sense, he cut his teeth as an 18-year-old playing for Dunstable Town.
And these out their own pocket would get to games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just the love of football, really.
Yeah, Peter's there in the Wall of Fame, which has George Best, Jeff Astle, Kerry Dixon, all Dunstable Town, former Dunstable Town players in their day. Then had one more season in the Southern League, got relegated out of that, and then comes along COVID. COVID, in a sense, for us was the call to arms. COVID was we've been a members-run football club, but we're struggling. We're struggling badly because we don't have the appeal locally to get more than 100 or 120 people into the ground. And 100 and 120 people, when you've got the same fixed costs of pitch hire, training hire, match officials.
That's the target number?
120 would pay the bills but give you precious little else.
Right, okay. Yeah. So how do you grow the club, grow your fan base without spending money? How do you even take that on? Because obviously it's now, we fast forward now, summer 2024.
Yep.
You're still here.
Yep.
So you're obviously doing some things right.
Still growing.
So what are you doing? Because I'm really intrigued by
Adam,
that.
that's a perfect cue for me to say we were awarded really quite a prestigious award by the non-league paper
Okay.
this year. So the non-league paper made us their community club of the year 2024. And, you know, for myself, for the directors, for the committee, for the volunteers, that's a huge accolade. And in a sense, that slightly answers your question, because as a community benefit society, we've basically invested our time and energy into running community groups.
Okay.
Now, the important thing to remember as a community benefit society football club is that our off-field activities have equal value and weighting as what happens on the pitch on a Saturday afternoon. So that's something that basically only 36 other clubs who belong to the community-owned club network can boast. So for us, long-term sustainability is the ultimate goal. So in the last 50 odd years or so, last 50 odd years, Dunstable Town have ceased to exist twice. We've gone out of business. And again, you go back to what I was saying about those other clubs that have risen phoenix-like from the ashes. Well, we did the same, but, you know, there was a period in the 70s and the 90s when the club wasn't running. We came perilously close back in 2017 when the previous chairman left, and again post-COVID. So, you know, it's not the most exciting message to be giving to fans, which is, yeah, we'd love to get promotion. Of course, we'd love to be, you know, at step 4. We'd love to be having a local derby with AFC Dunstable. But my goal every start of every season is to make sure that we've survived and we're going to be there for next season. And if it means being at step 5 for a season or two until we've grown the business side of the club even more.
Do it like a stronger foundation almost.
Yeah. So there are diverging views on the directors board. There are I'm a voice which is always thinking of next season. But there are many more people with a lot more financial acumen and business backgrounds who say, don't worry, we're sort of there, we're already there. So how do we grow? Well, we grow in a sense by doing what we've already started to do, which is work in partnership with a lot of different organisations.
Okay.
So this time, if we were sitting down chatting a year ago, gents, and you'd asked me the same question, I'd have said to you, well, look, every fortnight we run 9 community support groups. 12 months later, we're running 23. Now, some of those, most of those are our own, but some of them we run in partnership with other partners. Okay. So by investing our time and energy into community groups, we hope that the community in return will support us. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean, huge financial contributions, but it might be 1 or 2 people more becoming owners. Might be 1 or 2 more people.
It grows awareness, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Becoming supporters.
What kind
1 or 2 more people becoming volunteers.
What kind of community groups?
So the community groups we run. So my own background was in mental health nursing. So I worked for 40 odd years I did 40 years in the NHS as a mental health nurse. Hugely satisfying career. No 2 days were ever the same. There's a lot of transferable skills that you use, or I used at work, which I now sort of bring into the football club. But it gave us the basis to do something which we don't think any other club in the country has done before or is doing currently.
Okay.
And I'm quite prepared to receive... Any club.
At any level?
At any level.
That's a statement.
Well...
It's a big statement.
It is a big statement.
I've made it several times, Adam, and I am more than happy to receive an email from another club chairman to say, hold on, Andrew, you've got your facts wrong there. No, we've been doing this for X number of years. So we literally have asked around and said, is there a club that is doing what we're doing on the level that we're doing it? And as far as we know, the answer is no.
Wow.
So when you say, what do we do? So we have 2 peer support mental health groups. So on a Monday, we have a group called Sphere, which meets, and on Wednesday, we have a group called Soul that meets. And they are for people with lived experience of mental health problems and who are in recovery. Okay. So we're not a drop-in centre. We're not able to really provide care and support for people who are in crisis. But we've got excellent links with the community mental health team locally, with our local Mind organisation. So if people do develop relapse symptoms, we are able to signpost, we're able to support informally within the groups, but we're able to signpost people into.
Amazing.
Yeah. We became a community benefit society 3 years ago. So we initiated a program called Improving the Lives of Others. And the whole idea was, in a sense, that becomes our USP, physical well-being and mental health. And we started off very, very simply. We started a walking group and we started a walking football group. So exercise is a proven benefit for a whole host of physical reasons, cardiovascular, respiratory. It helps people to lose weight, etc., etc. The brain releases endorphins, and endorphins are the brain's own natural antidepressants. So we knew we were doing something right when people would come up to us and say, "Do you know what? That's a really good session, and I feel brighter in myself. I feel that my mood has lifted since I've started doing this. My anxiety is more controlled. This has really helped me. Thank you." Yeah. And it wasn't just the odd one; it was several people. And I've had a couple of really emotional meetings with supporters where you think 40 years in the job, worked in a variety of really challenging settings with some really challenging people. And I've sat there with a sort of a little tear in my eye, sort of welling up because the story has moved me, people who have had addiction problems, people, a whole host of different things. And in a sense, when you hear those very validating experiences, you think, okay, we're doing something right. We are of benefit, a community benefit society. Yeah, we are of benefit to the community and we are helping people. So from those two groups, we've now developed 5 or 6 different walking football groups. We've gone into a local school with walking football. I have to say, a huge thank you to Ian Bateman, who runs that on behalf of the club. Okay. Absolutely tireless campaigner and advocate for walking football. Ian's also teamed up with the local dementia charity that is supporting people living with dementia. So we now do a walking football group for people living with dementia. Gents, I have to say to you, one of the most life-affirming experiences I've had recently was when Ian and I were sort of looking at whether this was a group that we could possibly run, was going up to Bedford, to the John Bunyan Centre in Bedford, so the same charity that we're working with, and seeing elderly gents who were really very disorientated and very confused, would not being able to tell you what day of the week it was, perhaps not even being able to recognise, their partners or understand that relationship. Put a ball at their feet, and then something in the brain is triggered.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was amazing.
It is absolutely amazing, and the fact that we're privileged enough to be able to give something back to these gents who are living with dementia, gives their wives a little bit of a break while they're playing. Cool. So we work with Tibbs Dementia Foundation in terms of providing that. We work with a wonderful lady called Vicky Harding.
Okay.
And I have to say, a bit of an NHS unsung hero. So I met Vicky sort of three years ago when we were sort of just starting off one of our peer support mental health groups, and we sort of, I think, realised pretty quickly that we were on the same page in terms of wanting to provide additional community support to what charities, organisations and local councils already provide. So Vicky works for Titan Primary Care Network, I think it is, Titan PCN, and we together set up a group called Chums and Crumbs.
Chums and Crumbs.
Chums and Crumbs. And Chums and Crumbs is a group which meets every Thursday for people who are lonely and socially isolated. So again, from my own sort of background, I knew that for a lot of older people, loneliness and social isolation is a huge cause of depression more than anxiety. Low mood and depression. And Vicky was absolutely on the same page, and we just said, yeah, let's do it. We've got the ability. Let's go off and do it. So we've been doing that for 3 years. So we've got the 2 mental health peer support groups. We've got Chums and Crumbs. We do a collaborative group with both Titan and Shout or Whisper,
Okay.
who are a group in Hitchin, a charity based in Hitchin, which is all around creative writing. Sitting down talking about things is fine for a lot of people, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. And some people would find it to be quite intimidating and quite anxiety
Yeah.
provoking to be within a group talking about feelings, but they can express those through the written word. So we do a group on a Monday evening called Right Minds. We do another group on a Thursday with the Recovery College, NHS Recovery College, called Let's Talk, again, which is all around sort of exploring sort of mental health and how you're able to not cure it, but cope with symptoms, live with the difficulties that it presents. We do groups with the Disability Resource Centre. As I said, Ian is taking walking football into schools.
You should be clear, people like Ian, he's a volunteer.
Ian is a volunteer.
All these groups
Yeah.
are all run by volunteers.
All run by volunteers.
But like kind of orchestrated by the club.
Yep.
Organised by the club, using maybe club's resources, club's funding, little funding.
So our owners,
Yeah.
we have 100 and something individual owners. So you can buy various packages of support and they will all come with slightly differing additional benefits.
Right.
But each of them, every single owner, every single year knows that some of their annual subscription is going to pay for the running costs of those groups.
Amazing, isn't
So when we talk about improving the lives of others, that is what our owners are doing. And we were talking earlier about sort of, the fan experience. For us to survive long term, we need to build a strong network of owners. They may want to come and watch football matches, but they may not do. But they may just support the club's activities and ambitions in terms of providing additional support for people living in the community. So we try and make that sort of fan experience as accessible for people. We try and make it as enjoyable for people. We hope that people who then do take out the ownership, they receive a monthly newsletter, they all get sort of various perks and discounts in various shops locally. And we hope that they will take part in the democratic running of the club by coming to the AGM, by voting. I was sort of involved in a call with the FSA back in March, and I was looking through the notes the other day, and we're talking about AGM attendances. So most sort of AGMs will attract between 3 and 5%. Those are sort of the given industry sort of figures for attendance. So we had our AGM, and I know we're still relatively small, but we had nearly 20% of our relatively small owners turning up for it, which was sort of I was able to proudly sort of report back to the FSA and say 3 to 5%. Well, we did nearly
quadrupled it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to point out the fact that there's a lot of misconceptions around the club. For example, what you said about certain fans thinking helping the club is buying a hot dog or a drink or something like that. But you've just pointed out something so important that the owners make the club.
Yes.
Being a fan, becoming a member, owner, not only creates the shirt that they're going to wear. We've got it right here, for example. This is the new
fine shirt, isn't it?
It's a lovely kit.
with us
like it.
proudly on the back of it.
Yeah, chosen by the owners.
Yeah, chosen by the owners.
Democratically.
And things like this are really important to the fans. But also, it creates an outlet. Them paying that money to become a member, all these things, helps the community as a whole.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Well, I think what you just said about the AGM, you're saying that other clubs similar size maybe get an AGM attendance of 5%.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to look at kind of like a pessimistic view. But if their club is just about the football, how many ticket sales they've got, how many hot dogs, how many burgers, how many pints of beer they sell, and the football isn't great, right? Because it might not be a great football.
Yeah.
It's a different type of football, isn't it? Then maybe they're not as attracted. But if you've got people that are investing in these communities, which are all fantastic things, perhaps that's maybe what encourages more people to come along, because in their mind, it isn't just football. It's far more than that. Personally, I think massive hats off, because I don't think any of our listeners, and I hope our listeners do, really do watch this, because to think that a small football club that is struggling to survive, or has struggled to survive, actually gives so much care into things that aren't about football.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people think about that kind of stuff. No. I'd be very surprised if they football club would go, I bet they do a lot of charity work. So yeah, big kudos to that.
Thank you, Adam. And I think for us, one of the biggest challenges is still around our own sort of marketing and promotion about what we do. I think we're still quite football centric, and in a sense, I absolutely get that. Most people will go to watch Dunstable Town Football Club because they want to see a game of football. The rest is maybe slightly secondary. The message that we still need to get across to more of them is that we won't survive just playing football. The harsh reality is, well, guys, we've tried that. We've done that. We know how that story ends. I'm just going to sort of just stop talking about Dunstable Town for a moment, because the community-owned club that I sort of aspire to try and make Dunstable Town similar to is Lewes. So Lewes on the south coast has a smaller population than Dunstable. Their USP is around equality. So many years ago, they embraced the whole concept of equality between men's football and women's football. And they've been rewarded for that very brave stance by, where we've got sort of around 100 owners, they've got 2,500. And whereas we've got owners in probably 3 or 4 countries, they've got owners in 40 countries. Now, they've been doing this for a lot longer than we have, so they're sort of much further down that road. But in 10 years' time, I'd hope that's where we are, in the same way that people acknowledge Lewes as being a team or a club rather, which has embraced equality to the highest standard that it can do. Then I want Dunstable Town to be associated as the club which has embraced the whole ethos of positive mental health and borrowing from us. So how lovely it would be. So I also sit on the National Council of the Football Supporters Association, essentially with a brief to try and make positive mental health part of the FSA's agenda. So the FSA's, has many different supporters group, absolutely first-class organisation in terms of, again, diversity, equality, women's game, and anti-gambling. Well, say anti-gambling, just being sort of mindful of the sort of the huge amounts of money that the gambling lobby sort of is able to influence the game. Whole number of different issues. So my role I'm trying to do is sort of promote mental health on there. What I'd love to do is have a network of clubs who are all in a sense of a similar mindset, and we're able to sort of share ideas and good practice.
Thank you to everyone for listening. I've been Octavian, and I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. Let us know what you think of this episode by carrying on the conversation on LinkedIn at CX Insider Podcast. This episode is brought to you by ACF Technologies, global leaders in customer experience management solutions. Let's get into some quick fire questions. What fans have had the best atmosphere in the Euros that you both have seen? Going back to fan experience.
Scotland are just fantastic, aren't they? Yeah. I think, no Scotland, no party. It's brilliant. I mean, they're brilliant. The Tartan Army, I can remember the days when the Tartan Army coming to London, hanging off crossbars, etc. was a little bit of a challenge, but I love that sort of football support. England fantastic as well, haven't they? It was. I know there were little pockets of boos, etc. But in terms of not getting on the players' backs too much, I think great support out there.
I agree, Scottish fans, because let's be honest, the quality of football that Scotland played in their games wasn't great. I mean, they scored 1 goal, didn't they? And that was an own goal, I think.
Yeah.
I think Germany actually as hosts have been amazing so far. And I know a few people are lucky enough to have been over there. I think the Dutch fans are always mad and brilliant. I think they're incredible. Yeah. I think, to be honest, I think so far it seems to be run brilliantly. There doesn't seem to be any real trouble. And I understand that there's beer available pretty much everywhere that you go. So but there's also police everywhere that you go. So obviously controlling the fans and keeping a good balance. So And of course, English fans, I think we're hoping for a kind of eruption of energy from our players. And the fact that we had that goal from Bellingham the other day, hopefully will drive us on. But we were chatting before, and we've got this funny feeling I have that maybe this is the year that we're not playing great football. We might actually win it.
Yeah.
Because we've done it the other way.
Football works that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can play well and lose, play bad and win.
Absolutely.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
We are deserving of some luck and some good fortune, aren't we?
Yeah, like Real Madrid, they win the Champions League all the time. They're never the better team in the final.
By. Yeah, they just scrape by. Have any players impressed either of you? Any goals that you've liked? Any performances?
I thought the goal by Switzerland the other day was pretty amazing. Xhaka's been good, hasn't he? Yeah, I think any player but an England player. Really?
Bellingham.
No, Bellingham's been great. I think Bellingham's been good.
Both his goals.
Yeah, he's a tank, isn't he?
Yeah.
And apparently he's a really amazing guy.
Yeah.
And he's only 20. Was he 20 or 21 on Saturday?
Maybe 21, but even still, crazy.
He's a tank, isn't he?
It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Spanish kid as well, Lamine Yamal.
Yeah,
Heard about him. He's 17.
Yeah.
But he's doing exams and then playing like
Yeah.
the evening. Crazy.
No, I think the tournament's gone well. All fans like to get all passionate, don't they? And we like to think that we know better tactics than the manager.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that all fans seem to question Southgate over, which I think is a bit unfair considering he's won more tournament games than any other England manager, has been in the job longer, but is should he play with wing backs? Should he not play with wing backs? What should he play with?
Do you know, it's...
Should he drop one of the midfield three?
Such a difficult question, isn't it? Because I was surprised that Grealish didn't come. Because I felt certainly on Sunday, wasn't it?
It was.
It was Sunday. Sunday, you just felt somebody like Grealish,
magic.
Somebody like Gordon, you know, somebody who can unlock a defence. It was so pedestrian. There was such little movement. It sort of craved the mastery of a Gascoigne from
it needed something
earlier years.
Yeah.
Somebody with a bit of trickery and a bit of skill. The wing back question, it's. But do you know what? We keep getting through. We keep.
I know.
You know
we're getting results.
That's
so I don't want to moan.
That's the thing, Adam, isn't it? You know, it's. So, do you change a winning formula?
Well, I tell you what, if we win the tournament, then no one will moan.
No.
Will they? And you're right. We haven't lost a game. We're through by the skin of our teeth. Let's be honest. But I can't imagine that happening in the next game.
That is all you need in a cup tournament is to be winning by the skin of your teeth.
I'm going to ask you another quick fire question.
Go on.
Okay, so people are going about golden generations.
Yeah.
And they say that the Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, Beckham, Owen, Rooney was the golden generation.
Yeah.
Do you think this generation of players is as good, if not better, or
They've
what?
got the potential, haven't they?
Yeah.
You look at those guys, you know, there's some serious talent on there. You know, you think Foden, brilliant,
immense.
Saka, they all are.